Okay, we are there. So once we publish it, we'll cut it. But for now, I like to start a bit earlier, just in case there's anything. But
No
feel
rush.
free to turn off your video if you want, and we'll be ready in 4 minutes. Abdul, how?
It looks good.
And yeah, quality looks good. Stream looks good. We're starting to get people. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Very excited about your demo, Abdul. That's going to be cool.
Yeah. It's cool.
So you want to, before we start, just double check that you can share your screen. I'm assuming you'll both be sharing screens. So Alan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, let me go ahead and try that. That's a great recommendation. 1 second. All right, sharing my screen. Can you all see that?
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah. Looks good. Oh.
Good, stop.
All right, I'm going to share mine and let's see. Okay. Can you see my screen?
It's good. Yep. Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Perfect. Perfect.
Cool.
Everything's coming together. I'm so excited because this morning I had no internet connection in my home at all. And then, luckily, 1 hour ago, the cable guys show up, swap some stuff, and now it seems to be working. So
yeah,
cool.
So as long as both of your connection works, we'll be set. So just to kind of quickly give you a rundown. I'll do the kind of like the intro, welcome everyone. I'll do a couple of announcements around KubeCon and all that stuff. And then I'll do a quick intro for you, Alan. Anything you want me to mention? I'll just mention that you're a developer at a mortgage company, as you said.
You could say product manager.
Perfect.
And the rest is fine. I'll go into my own intro and the
okay, then I'll skip and just say, hey, welcome you, or thank you, mention you've been a member of the community for a while, and then I'll let you take it from there. And then whenever you're done, we'll make some room for questions. I have some questions that I already sent you. Abdul may have some questions as well. I'll keep an eye on YouTube to see if we get any questions from the audience. And then after that, if you want to stick around on the stream, is great. If you're busy, no worries. And then Abdul will go and do a demo. And at the end, we always do, the summary. Hey, thanks everyone. Subscribe. Come again next month.
Like and subscribe. Yeah.
Exactly. Like and subscribe. We need a promo at some point. We haven't done that yet.
All the animations. Yeah.
Yeah, probably for the next call, I'll listen to Abdul and we'll do StreamYard, and then we'll be able to do all those like fancy pop-ups. But that'll be for the next one.
Sounds good.
All right, so we're almost there. Let's give people a couple more minutes. Let me open YouTube, but mute it. All right, there's Melissa from Okteto. Hi, Melissa.
Hi.
All right, so I think it is 10 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. in Mexico, where I'm currently at. Alan, and we have today, first, everyone, welcome to Okteto's community call on August. We do this every month as a way to connect with the community and also to kind of showcase all the cool things that members of our community are building around Okteto, around dev experience, Kubernetes, all the things. My name is Ramiro. I'm one of the founders of Okteto. And today with us is Alan Barr. Alan Barr is a program manager at a mortgage company. He's been on the community for a long time now. He's always been super supportive. So we're extremely excited to have him here. He'll be sharing a lot of his work around building an internal dev platform for the company he works at. We also have Abdul from Lagos. Abdul is our dev advocate, and he's going to be giving us a really cool demo of this feature we built a few months ago that allows you to deploy a dev environment and have realistic data attached to it. So we already published a blog post on this, but I figured that seeing it live is always a lot more fun. So Abdul prepared a demo for us. So once again, thanks everyone for joining. As you know, we do this every month. So as always, if you want to join, if you want to demo something, please feel free to reach out to us on Slack, on Twitter, or via email. Before we get into the demos, a couple of announcements. One is KubeCon is coming, October, for all of us here in the US. It seems like it's going to be a live event. No one's known for sure, but it seems that way. So, well, we are going to be there. Okteto is going to be giving a couple of talks on one of the days on the first day of KubeCon, on Developer Experience Day. We're going to be talking about preview environments. One of our engineers, Jacob, is going to be giving a talk on that. And I'm going to be giving a talk on developing on the cluster. So really cool stuff. If you're there, if you're planning on whether you're going to be there remote or in person, you know, please stop by, say hi. It'll be great to see you all, meet you, and talk about Kubernetes, the experience, and all that sweet stuff. And the other thing is just going to get you prepared. October is coming, and you know, Hacktoberfest. It's a big thing that happens in October. It's an event organized by DigitalOcean. I'm actually working my Hacktoberfest from last year. Highly recommend you join. We'll be doing some stuff in Okteto. We'll be creating some issues if you want to contribute to the CLI. But even if you don't, even if you hate Okteto, and if you do, I don't know why you're watching the stream, but welcome anyway. But do participate. It's cool. You get swag, you get cool t-shirts. DigitalOcean typically makes donations. So check it out. It's one of my favorite events of the year. It's a great way to get involved in open source. They're doing a big effort to make it welcoming for everyone. So you can contribute with code, samples, documentation, feedback. It's a great way to contribute back to all those open source projects that we all use and love. So that's it for me. I'll stop talking, and you know, we're all here to see Alan. So Alan, it's all yours.
Hello, Okteto. Yeah, great seeing you too, Ramiro. I love meeting the Okteto community. I'm really passionate about your product and the platform that you've built. I want to show you some slides today about the journey that I've gone on with the company I work for. We're a little shy, so I'm not really, you can, if you want to find me and find out where I work, it's easy. You can do some sleuthing, but you know, we're all kind of working in this developer experience world. And I feel like Okteto is really key to that. So cheers to Okteto. Hopefully you can see my cool Okteto mug there. So if you're good, Ramiro, do you mind if I share my slides?
Go ahead. The stream is yours now.
Awesome. Thank you. So I want to tell you today about my journey with the company I'm on, and it might resonate for some of you, and you might hear about some things about, you know, developer experience and building platforms, and it gets a little complicated. So I want to really show you kind of what we went through and why we did what we did. So why we built an internal developer platform. We call it DevLab. It's a centralized self-service portal. So who am I? I feel like I'm an expert at this based on my experience so far, but I've only built one platform, so you'll have to forgive me here. And I appeared on DevOps Paradox. If you want to listen to it, I wrote kind of a little bit of a spicy blog article about your internal developer platform not being adequate. And you might be surprised, but I would actually advocate you do not build an internal developer platform at all. Now, you might be shocked, like, why would I not do that? I thought that's the whole point of Okteto and all the things. I really think that if you can use a tool like Okteto Cloud, use what's available, because building platforms is really hard and time consuming. And so you'll learn a lot of things that you could spend that time on differentiating your business. So Evan Botcher has a really great quote. I think he's at ThoughtWorks. He talks about what is a platform, and a platform is a collection of the tools that help developers just do their jobs better. And I think that there's so much low-hanging fruit to make developers more effective, and Okteto's rapid inner loop experience, I think it's just key. It's central to enabling that. So one of the challenges that we faced, and let me tell you about the developers that I serve. We're a .NET Microsoft shop that may not be super well known to you out there, because we're transitioning from this older Windows virtual machine world to this newer .NET Core world, going from .NET Framework to .NET Core. And we're going through this transition of Linux, cross-platform, Kubernetes. It's a big change. It's a lot of changes. It's a paradigm shift. And so what we see is that in a business, you end up having this centralized team that is a product team. It's long-lived. It's running and building the platform. It's not usually your differentiator for your business. And then your application teams, the developers that are developing on your systems, they're focused on solving business problems. And the challenge is that there's a navigation, a balance between the differentiation that application developers want to do and make great, awesome things, and then the centralized standards that the platform gives you. It helps you go faster. It reduces risk. However, it's a trade-off. It's definitely a trade-off on that. So the way that we kind of talk about the pain that we were experiencing before in our business was related to virtual machines and Windows. There was so much time and effort. We're waiting on these other parties. If you think about team topologies, if you think about all the books on DevOps, what we're trying to go towards is more team autonomy, more experimentation, more of doing things with your team and not relying on these third parties or these dependencies to get things done. So it was really painful at the time. And now with this new experience that we've built that's on top of Okteto, that's on top of Kubernetes, we're reducing that loop of making a feature, testing it, and then releasing it to production. So that's the dream. And Kubernetes is that big hope that we can move our workloads between different clouds on premises. It's just the one place that you need to go to move your workloads. What we live with in the Windows virtual machine world is if I need to do a data center migration, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of apps to go into. There's a lot of settings to change. And with Kubernetes, it's a click of a button to move from one to another. Now, there's some complications with that. I won't get into it, but that's the dream. That's the hope. So what was the early product vision for this developer platform? Well, we wanted to take away all the wasteful activities that our developers were doing with building builds and releases and all these old things. We wanted them to really focus on what makes the business different and better so that we can better interact with our different teams and be more autonomous through API first design. So having really clear interfaces so that the communication is via the contracts and not coordinating and meetings and planning. It just causes things to continue to drag. And a lot of our developers are just new to Linux. They're new to .NET Core. They're new to containers. They're new to Kubernetes. It was a really challenging, difficult process to determine, like, what are we trying to build? How are we serving our developers? Because many of the ones that we work with, they're really passionate about helping the business be successful and not so much on the cool platform tools, which are great and wonderful and valuable. However, those help power our business. So the constraints we had, and this might be shocking to you, but I am living in the mortgage world. So at the time, cloud was totally off limits. The benefit was it made it much easier to choose tools and choices. And we focused only on Kubernetes stateless services, no databases on Kubernetes. So that simplified things greatly. So you're probably looking at this, and if you're like me, you are overwhelmed. You're like, okay, let's build a Kubernetes-based platform. Where do we start? Let's pick one of these. Cloud took a lot of these off the table, the removal of cloud. So what it ends up looking like is something more like this, where you're going down the trail and you're just choosing all the different core tech you need. And once you've chosen that, it basically stays fixed and then you move on. So for us, Okteto was the rapid inner loop development tool that we settled upon. We saw the value. We really appreciated the approach that Okteto takes versus its competitors because it is something that works. It's seamless. It's easy. It's very little pain. We've ran into issues, of course, like anyone, but they're so responsive. They're so fantastic. The community is amazing. That's why you're here, right? So we've really appreciated that. And that's why it really resonated with us to continue to work with that and offer that as part of the platform. So DevLab is a white glove experience, meaning we're hospitality focused. We're really trying to get out of the way of the developers as much as possible and not make them learn Kubernetes directly. And that might be a bit of a shock to some of you out there who want to give Kubernetes directly to your developers. You really have to weigh the options. Maybe your shop is small enough that makes sense. For us, it didn't. What we were focused on was this concept that Netflix shares and talks about. You can see at the link there, but the concept of the paved road, make the developer experience easy and simple to do, the one that you support, that paved road. If it's not going to be supported, then they'll have to go off in the ditch themselves. But ideally, they work with you to refine and define that experience and that you're able to support it versus the ones that go off. They need to get your time. You have to plan it a little bit more. We know that's going to happen, but let's make it simple for us, right? So these are a lot of the technologies that lie underneath the platform. You can see Okteto here. That's in the day-to-day experience of the developers, what they're doing. And I'll show you a little quick sample of what our portal does. It's nothing fancy. Honestly, I could describe it as a lot of glue code that connects things and gives you some links. But these are all different technologies that we've, for whatever reason, to help us standardize how we do things. How do we standardize secrets? How do we standardize our logging? How do we standardize messaging? How do we standardize API contracts? Once these are solved and chosen, we can move on. We don't have to think too much about, should we use this? Should we do that? We're trying to reduce the cognitive load of developers and make their choices easy and effective and important for the business that they're working on. So Okteto is the tool that enables the rapid interloop development for us. One of these examples, while it doesn't speak exactly to the Okteto experience, that is what's powering this under the hood. So you can see here that DevLab has saved our team time and headaches with setting up our projects. We no longer need to spend time and resources preparing server stacks and creating builds and releases. The ability to test your feature in its own container is also a game changer. That's through Okteto. That's by the developer, Okteto up, defining, their YAML, of course, but that's a very minimal barrier to entry. And they're connecting to the different APIs in their environment. It's seamless. It's a game changer for all of us. So this enables them to have a really clear process of working with their partners, with doing their code and working on features. And it's removed a ton of barriers that we were facing in the software development lifecycle process. So you can see here, this is the journey that I went on with my team. Again, I recommend if you can leverage something like Okteto Cloud and start from there, you're going to save a ton of time and frustration and headaches. As much as you can, have someone else run the platform for you. If I had the choice, I wouldn't have done it, but that's where we're at. If one day someone's going to offer a service that I can use in my space, I would definitely use that. So July 2020, we start the research. We deliver the MVP in November of 2020, and now we're in the adoption phase. And people are excited. They're loving the experience, but it's taken a lot of work to get there. So I continue to look at the different offerings, to compare the experience. My offering is highly differentiated, and there's lots of choices out there that do a lot of the same things, but for the most part, they're just giving you Kubernetes as a service. And ultimately, you're going to want more than that, but you have to start somewhere, right? You have to experiment and try things. So you're probably asking yourself, well, if you built your own developer portal, self-service portal, what about Backstage? What about Clutch? These might be great self-service portals for you to just pull off the shelf and utilize and give value to developers that you might be supporting. So I definitely recommend checking them out. They might have the feature sets that you need. They might not. For us, we felt like our scope was so constrained that it made sense to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to show you a really quick demo of me touring the front end navigation of the portal. There really isn't much to see there. The thing that I would highlight is that the learning is really front and center for our developers because this is really big change for them. For a lot of you out there in the Okteto community, you might be a Kubernetes master at this point. You might be already really experienced and you know Linux, you know how the kernel works, you have all those things. For us, we're not really there on our journey yet, but in time we will be. So you can see here, I'm populating the information to create my project. The only choice you have today is a C#.NET web API. We're going to have Python soon for our data science people. But there really isn't a whole lot to the experience other than this is the central place you go do your work. This is where you can find some information about your app as it's in production. These are all the resources you need. Where's my code repository? Where's the pipeline? Where is the secrets? Where is the running application with an open API Swagger doc? Where's the logging, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm sure this is all very familiar to you. This is not a shock. There isn't a whole lot to it, but that's what we've built so far. So I want to tell you a little bit about the API first design experience. The benefit of this is that our developers can focus on better design and communication about the contracts we need to communicate. This is a very new and raw space for a lot of us. And I think that this is a really good place to highlight how developers can think about building an application that satisfies the needs of users. I don't know how many oftentimes you've experienced where you find an API and you're excited to use it, but it's missing that one little thing that you needed. We really want to hope that we can start that conversation sooner and earlier so that as we scale, I know that when I was a developer, I had one API and I thought, well, I don't know why I would need this. But once I got to about 500 APIs, I really needed some help. I'm like, well, there could definitely be a better way to reuse data or get some feedback on whether this is good or bad. Did I miss something? Does this make sense? We're living in a space now where so much is still kind of undefined and not really constrained that we kind of run into conflict when we don't agree on how to work together and communicate. So to remind you all, what was the problem that my team set out to solve? Make the teams more autonomous, help them deliver features for the business, discover internal resources like APIs. What can we use to combine to create a new business? I want to make that front and center for people, and just experiment. Give people a better ability to inner source, to collaborate. I could remember many times, we've had teams work around processes like, this is just how Microsoft's IIS does websites, and we'd love to improve it on this thing, but we can't send a pull request anywhere. Well, you can do that with this newer platform. You're able to offer that as a possibility versus people working around it. So it's a really exciting space to be in today where, we can all collaborate. I have contributed to Okteto to add not the greatest functionality, but I added something. So I feel like I got a huge win there. So some other benefits, less cognitive load. Once you get the training in place, I really recommend that. Like you might find yourself accidentally training someone multiple times. We've been there. It's stressful. If you have a trainer, I definitely recommend leveraging them as much as possible. And we also settled on things like conventional commits to help us auto version, to help us keep commit history readable. And it just removes a lot of the cognitive load of thinking about like, what version is this? Do we need to promote it? Did we do a thing? And so that's like a lot of the different things like I've kind of hammered here. So I talked to some engineering managers at Netflix and Apple, and they've already been on this journey. They already know what it's like. And so these are some of the problems that they've sought out to solve. And I've tried to solve some of them, but it's definitely in a space that as you are doing developer experience or building your own platform, you might run into these things where what are the internal resources? Like what packages can I use? What version of something is this supported? Who owns this? Is this available? Is it stable? Am I allowed to use it? Who do I talk to if it's broken? Those remain to be huge problems at scale. And we're seeing that, as well, and you might see that. So just fair warning, if you go on this journey, there's a lot of hard problems that are out there to solve. And so lessons learned that they got was just like spending time to make developers more effective. There's lots of options there. It could be making documentation more accessible, but it can also cause new problems where you help day one go really fast, but now you have a lot of sprawl. Now you have to shut down these lightly used apps, or you didn't spend time on the upgrade process from language version A to language version B. And now those teams are having to like, oh, we customized it. Was that okay? Like, oh, yeah, you customized the Docker file. Yeah, that's going to be a little tough. We're going to have to walk you out of that one. And just ownership, it's really, really hard. So what are some lessons learned that I've learned from this platform? Well, streamlining the experience is great. We're really excited. We're getting all kinds of testimonials about the product. No one wants to manage the build deploy pipelines. It seems great. People have that initial shock of like, I don't get to do this anymore. And then they say, I don't get to do this anymore. And they're excited about it. So it's a little bit of a shift for them. Less dependencies are better for you. If you can have an administrator move workloads to different locations, that's way better for you as a developer. Consistency helps people focus on what they need to do and not all the details that can just, wreck your software. And training, I really highly recommend getting people training. A lot of this is really new for people, and they're going to have old mental models around software that doesn't apply to Kubernetes anymore. And that's going to be a bit of a struggle. They're going to try and use the old language that doesn't work for the new thing. So be prepared that people that you might encounter that are not like working directly with Kubernetes might be a little foggy around what exactly is happening. 12-factor, if you go to the 12-factor website, that has lots of great information about how to manage the transition. That's the framework that we've been using to communicate with developers about why we're making the changes we're making. And once they understand it and play around with the ideas, they appreciate the value because they're doing a lot less manual work to basically make their things work. And then the rapid interloop development, I mean, praise to Ramiro and his team. This is obviously a tool of a labor of love. It appears, I imagine Ramiro, like many lessons learned over many years of just how you do your work, and you've given this as a gift to the community. So, let's give him a round of applause and his team. Like, we really appreciate your hard work. So these are some things that we're trying to do in our environment. How do we get to public cloud? How do we make eventing easier? Just how do we onboard people? A lot of these are real simple product management strategies that I'm trying to use and incorporate and make it a better product. Ramiro probably lives this every single day. We made hats. That was a big thing. I recommend if you need, adoption on your product, make some swag and send it out. And where we're at today is 25 applications in production. We have 9 teams onboarded. It doesn't seem like a big number, but it was quite a journey. It was quite a struggle to get to this place. And now we're really just like gaining a ton of steam. So if maybe your platform is really small, but that's okay, because if their platform is right, they're not, it's really hard to have a minimal viable product for a platform because the feature set has to be so massive. So I hope you can all empathize with the struggle of building a quality software for developers, because they're discerning people. And so that's all I had to share today. I hope you learned something. I hope you took something away. Okteto, thank you so much for being there for us. It's definitely made the experience much easier and much simpler to work with than if we were doing something else.
Thanks, Alan. That was super interesting. And I'm glad you're finding Okteto useful. As always, as you said, it's a labor of love. It's something we do first because we like it, because it's something that solves our problems. So it's always great to see somebody else in the community also benefiting from this. Really, really insightful. I have a couple of questions kind of as you went through it. One thing I really like is how you mentioned that some people might come with like different mental models, and how that was something that you saw was kind of getting in the way of adoption. What did you do to kind of help break that? Is it like a training situation, or is it like adapting your platform to be more like what they expect? That's always, when I talk to people in the dev experience world, that's always kind of like one of those key situations of, do we force developers in a certain direction, or do we make it like more ample? Like, what's your experience on this?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's where the training really came in handy. Like I put a lot of work early on in making tutorials, but it kind of missed the mark because it didn't explain why things were different. And that's what the developers are looking for, is to they don't mind doing it differently. They just kind of want to know why it's different. And so what our trainer ended up doing was built a curriculum that kind of explains the why behind it and how it's a little different. And so, I guess, if you're not familiar with Microsoft IIS, you could kind of compare it to Apache. And so if you're familiar with Apache, it's this like, aged, but it's like battle worn, battle true, tested web server, right? Like, we've seen it all, we've used it, whatever you need to do with it, you could figure it out. But the questions we were getting were a little weird. It was sort of like we use Azure DevOps. There's a lot of concepts in there, like builds and releases and agents to do work. And people were asking questions about like, how do I do my script in the pipeline? And it's sort of like, well, you don't need to, because the majority of our apps are mostly consistent. They're the same APIs that take ins and outputs of data, and they talk to a database, and that's pretty much it. There's some unique ones that don't do that, but for the most part, most of them are like that. So we only need one pipeline for all these things. And so the training really helped to clear up that confusion, because there is some concept of like the server will recycle your application every 25 and a half hours or something like that. And so there were questions that came up around like, so when do I trigger the recycle? And so what it ended up led to was, let's explain to you the kind of the loop that Kubernetes does to keep your containers and pods. And once they were familiar with those concepts, all the confusion kind of went away, and they're like, okay, so I can trust it to do that now, and then I'll handle this. Okay. And I think once the division, the boundaries were a little more clear, it became more palatable to change the habits. So that might be still kind of a journey to go on with your groups or developers. Some of it's education, some of it's training, some of it's clearing up confusion. So your mileage may vary.
That's really cool. And this trainer figure that you mentioned, was this person kind of like sitting with the different teams and helping them on board into the platform, or will like come to me for questions?
So we tried that kind of embedded support model. The challenge was that I think if you work in a big enough environment, everybody is not great at everything. Like some people are great writers, some people are great trainers, some people are just great coders, et cetera, et cetera. And so what we found was early on, I offered the teams time, said, hey, reach out to us, jump in like a huddle room or a call, and we'll figure it out for you. But it was missing a lot of this like context that they couldn't have. And even developers, because they just kind of see it every day, they couldn't explain it very well. And so this person kind of came in, watched how people were doing it, observed, and then created, custom curriculum, which is very like, the reason why we did this is because of this, and on this journey, you're going to do that. And the way it works like this. And so there's a lot of like great material online that does that for Kubernetes, but you might have to, I don't know if you have what your resources are going to be like at your environment, but if you have someone that's good at that kind of thing, like definitely leverage them, because it's going to save you a lot of time. It's going to reduce your support, and it's going to clear up a lot of confusion. But we may not all be that blessed, to have that resource. So try to make the most of it as you can. It could be like, I offer sometimes for developers to consult with the team, like come join us for a few days, just observe, watch what we're doing, and you'll kind of get up to speed with a lot of things, but it's not always an option. That's great. That's really cool. It's funny because that's very similar to some of the challenges we have as people use Okteto Cloud, or as people, especially on big companies or teams as they onboard to Okteto Enterprise. I think the point that you mentioned, where not everyone is good at everything, it's a big challenge as you go from like self-sufficient small teams to supporting organizations like you do. That's something that I feel like should be more, we need to make more noise about, because it's a very key kind of transition that startups go to, like teams and organizations go to, and people don't keep it in mind as they build tools. That's, for us, is one of the biggest challenges. Is every time we're thinking of new features, it's like, okay, do we expose Kubernetes, and then we force everyone to be experts in Kubernetes, or do we build this abstraction, which is always a trade-off. I'm sure you went through the same, because there's always a trade-off of like hiding things. It's really hard. Yeah, it's probably the hardest thing about this whole journey, because this is going to be a shock to many of you. You can build a great product, but it won't change people automatically. They'll actually have to take on some internal change themselves. and you're in a bigger enterprise, your teams might not be organized in a way to make them successful to use the tool. So we've kind of, gone ahead on the journey to create the tool, but now we're going through that secondary phase of like organizational communication about the change, and then working with leadership and people that they're not in code. Like maybe it's been 3 years or more, if they ever were in code, and communicating to them, what is the value of building this? And why didn't we buy something else? And what we're learning is we need to double down on the pain this is solved, because the weird thing is like, we've taken a process that was like this and we've done like that. And people are like, so you're telling me I do less? That's usually when I buy a thing, it does more, but you're telling me it does less. Like, yes, it's going to do less, but the pain you were feeling was you didn't really know that you were paying for that all the time. So for all of you out there that are going on the journey, think about the personas that are outside of developers and how important they are to sell and to get buy-in and to support you. Executives, it's really hard to empathize with them because there's very few of them and they're very busy. They're making decisions. And what they're really wanting is really clear and concise information about what is the pain and how does this solve the pain, and what support do you need to help you be successful with your groups. And so part of this is a wonderful tool like Okteto. And then another part is, your teams adopting the tool, changing how they do their work, and being flexible to move around a little bit more than just hierarchy, Conway's Law, team topologies, lots of great resources out there about that. And then going through the organizational transition for a paradigm shift, because, and I don't want to be like rambling too much on this, but for a lot of people out there that are developers, this is going to be a big shock for them in 5 to 10 years. Like, I think we're kind of on the bleeding edge, even though Kubernetes has been out maybe since 2015. But they're going to go from this like virtual machine environment and Jenkins and Azure DevOps to container land, to more rapid, changes of teams and organization. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be pretty hard for them to adapt and change. So just, fair warning, not to scare anybody here. Okteto is still a great tool. You can show value really quickly and easily. And that's the benefit. The sooner you can demonstrate the value that like Okteto is offering to your customers, that goes a long way towards any buy-in that you're looking to do.
That's really cool. Thanks for sharing all that. It's been amazing. Abdul, I don't know if you have any more questions, or I'm sure you're excited to get your demo, but this has been a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, it has. I would like to ask Alan. We do have a couple of products. We have development environments, we have preview environments, and so on. So which is your favorite? Which do you like using the most?
I love the user interface of Okteto Cloud, and I think the environments are key. That's definitely been a number one ask from people to give them the ability to essentially, develop unencumbered, right? The biggest pain point we hear from people is usually I'm making a change, but it broke someone else. What do I need to do? And so like those environments, those are really key. So that's definitely something I love, but I don't know, maybe Ramiro has some amazing announcement I need to listen into before, because I don't want to get too excited.
Abdul is the man to follow for all that now. He is. But today it's all about data, and it's very cool. I've been tweeting as you were talking, and my friends, Laura, she's former Segment Docker Palantir. She was kind of like mentioning on how training is such an important thing, that it should be a standard process in every tool, and she's kind of agreeing with you, and that's something that she's spent a lot of time. She works on like the developer experience documentation world. We used to be teammates at HipChat back in the day, and she mentioned the same thing, that it's something that's we all have to evangelize, one team, one company at a time, but how important it is to, especially when it comes to internal tooling, to train. A lot of people just build tools, and I've been guilty of this. We build tools, we unleash them on our users, and they're like, oh yeah, just click and you'll figure it out. And it's not like that. I really love that metaphor you mentioned at the beginning of your talk on like we being on hospitality business. It's all about making our users comfortable. That's something that it's really cool. It's really interesting.
It is. Thank you very much, Alan.
All right, Alan. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks so much for being such a cool member of the community. And there you go. You see everybody else. We do have Okteto mugs. They are an extremely limited edition, but if you're interested in one, reach out. You know, if you do PR, if you want to come and join us, I'll make sure you will get a mug your way. So Alan, thanks so much. It's great seeing you. Interesting conversation. Looking forward to hearing more as DevLab grows and gains more cadence. I'm sure we'll be able to share a lot of learnings. And you know, everybody else, Alan is there on the Slack, on Okteto Slack. I'm sure he's on all the other places. So, you know, reach out if you have any questions. And now, Abdul, I've been waiting for this for a while now. Looking forward to seeing your demo. So take it away.
All right, thank you very much. So today I will be demonstrating, you know, how to create and use data clones in Okteto. You know, a very interesting use case for Okteto is, you know, like Alan said, developing as you go instead of having to affect changes and so. And, you know, in a scenario where you need to build a new feature and you need, you know, data to test instead of having to load dummy data, you know, you have an application, you want to test the behavior. How do data work with it? Does it work perfectly? Are there going to be issues? How do you like check? But then you have the, you know, issue of having to, you know, move data from maybe production database down to development mode, which is a lot of task. And since you use Okteto to develop, you know, you can have everything in one place. You create a data clone, and when you're creating a new deployment or your dev deployment, you just add your snapshots or labels or annotations. You know, in Kubernetes, we call it annotations. In Docker Compose Manifest, we call it labels. And so I have a simple demo here, which I'll just share my screen now. Let's go. Okay. Okay, so I have a simple demo. It's a Python application which is deployed using Docker Compose. Like Alan said earlier, we have, you know, configuration files. You could deploy application if it is a Docker Compose manifest, if it is Kubernetes, if it's Okteto stacks, even Helm charts, we support virtually all of them. If you feel you have a manifest which is yet to be supported, please do get in touch. I'm going to add support for such. So in my application here, I have just two services. I have an API and I have a MongoDB. Obviously, the MongoDB is where I store my data and the application API here. And so we will get on to deploying this application. As always, Okteto has a CLI, which makes deployment easier. And so the first step I have to do is Okteto login. Okay. Before that, I'd like to log into my cluster. Here, logging into Okteto cluster, you know, it's simple. We do not require a credit card and it's free for developers. So you should try and get one. So when you log in, you have a namespace here. So when I move back to this, I'm going to try this once more. I have Okteto login. And now I have been successfully logged in. And so the next step after logging in your Okteto CLI, you know, when you do Okteto login, you're basically creating a link from the CLI to your cluster. So it makes it easier. What do you do next? We're going to do Okteto namespace, youngest dev. The essence of this is to, you know, change all the like settings, so whatever code you run, whatever deployment you make, we made to the youngest dev cluster here, which I have. So you can see this is an empty namespace that I have to deploy an application. So the next step is to deploy this application I have. Since we have a Docker Compose manifest, I am going to deploy this Okteto stack deploy. Cool. So while this is, you know, deploying, I'm going to, you know, explain what data cloning is. And data cloning is the process of, you know, creating identical clones of your database, basically taking your database from a point, you know, creating a snapshot. You know, in Kubernetes, we call it snapshot. A snapshot is a copy of your data at that instance. So, you know, when you create data clone in Okteto, it is stored and you can, you know, call it or use it as will. The use case here is after application has been deployed here and we have a volume here. Application has been deployed. We have the deployment, we have MongoDB and the volume. The volume is where the data is stored. And while we wait for MongoDB to process, I'll give a rundown of how this works. Now, when you have an application in development, you need your data. How do you make it work? First, you know you have a populated database and you need to bring changes back there. And like I said, it's a lot of stress moving from production to development. And so we use data clones. So how then do you know, build these data clones? We'll get into that shortly. First, we need to create a couple of entries. And this is the Fast API application. Thanks to the Fast API creator, we have an interactive docs, which enables us impute data without having to run commands. So I'm just going to put a couple of data, and we're going to say the item is to clone this database and deploy a new one and deploy a new one. And so when I say this, it has been added, I'm going to create the second one. I'm going to create just 3 entries and, make Okteto more awesome for our users. And, the last one is going to be demo time. And now we have these items there. And so, yes, when I execute this, I have my data. And now I need a copy of this application with this data. I need to send it to another teammate, or, at a point our production application breaks down, we need to spin up a new development or a new production one instantly. Oh, this application is going to crash. This serves as a backup and for, so many use cases. So the next step is, to create a snapshot. And so we're going to call the snapshot manifest volume snapshots.yum. Okay. To create a snapshot, it's a Kubernetes. We have the API version here, which is going to be snapshots of storage with Kubernetes. Okay. We want kind to be it's a volume snapshots, like I said earlier. It's volume snapshots. And we need to fill the metadata. Now, what name do we want to call our snapshot? We can say data clone name demo snapshots. And we need to define the spec here. So we have the volume snapshots class name, which is going to be, by default, it is auto snapshots class. And the source. Now, this source here is going to be persistent volume claim name. And now, what is our persistent volume claim name? When we go back to our deployed application, the name of our volume here is MongoDB-data. That is, this is the volume we want to create a snapshot of. And so we say this is MongoDB data. And we have our snapshot in place. So to create a volume snapshot at this point, we use the kubectl tool. So say kubectl applied, this manifest volume snapshot here into this, namespace, youngest day. And so we wait for this. I would say we have an error. Okay, so we need to check probably we are making a mistake here. And volume snapshot.
You're missing an S in persistent, Abdul.
Oh yeah, thanks. Okay, so we just run this again. And let's see. Now we have our data cleaning snapshot included. So now it's time to redeploy the application with this data. So how do we do this? We have a Docker compose manifest. But we don't want to override the private application. So the next step is to create a new namespace. Now you have 2 ways of creating a new namespace. You either use a CLI or you use the UI. So we're going to use the UI. We're going to call this demo namespace. And the namespace has been created. And now we go back to our IDE and we switch into that namespace so that whatever deployment we make is in this particular namespace. So we have demo and get step. And now we have shifted the focus of our deployments and whatever commands or operations we want to run into the demo youngest dev namespace. And now it's time to deploy application once again, but this time around with the data. So what do you do? Now, in our volume section, we have the MongoDB volume here, which is going to be where our data is stored. But we want this to inherit the data, or should I say, this is a snapshot. Use this volume when you deploy this application instead of having to go back, use this particular one. So what do? We add labels. Okay. And Okteto, when you want to use the annotations or labels here, you need to add 2 annotations here. And so the first one is dev.okteto.com from snapshots name. Now, the first label is that, okay, this volume that we want to mount, where is it going to come from? And earlier on, if we go back to our snapshot name, we have the data cloning demo snapshot. So I'm just going to copy this and then paste. And the next is going to be dev.okteto.com / from snapshots namespace. What namespace was this, snapshot created? Just doing the youngest namespace. And now we are set. What else do we need to do? Is there any other thing needed? So now we're going to deploy application with a stack deploy. Okay, now application is building. And while the builds will, give a recap of what we've been doing. And so the first thing we did was create a snapshot of the current data in our volume. And this was the source MongoDB data volume here. And we saved it under the name data cloning demo snapshot. What is the class name for our volume snapshot? It is Okteto snapshot class. And after getting the snapshot, we want to use it. I need to transfer it to Alan for him to make use of it in his own organization, in his own deployment. How do I do that? Okay, Alan, you get the deployment, you get the volume from youngest dev namespace, and what snapshot do you want to use? It's going to be data cloning demo snapshot. So I know that when Alan deploys this application in his own, namespace or his own space, he gets the same data that I have. And this makes it, easier for teams to work together and compare, test the behavior, and it's easy to separate corruptible data from that, which is good. And it serves as a backup to instances, and it's because you can reuse this data at any point in time. So whatever development stage you are, Alan can use this, Ramiro can use this, even you as the guest can use this, and I can use it. And now we have our application has been deployed. So we go back to our namespace demo youngest, the way we redeployed the new application. And we have the MongoDB. And we can pick into the logs to see, okay, is this working? Likewise, we have our MongoDB data volume is ready for use, and we have our API, which has also been successfully started. Okay, we're waiting for MongoDB to get loaded. And in our volume YAM file, we can see the annotations we have, where the labels we added from the deployments, option, should I say. And now we have dev.okteto.com / from snapshot name. We know that this volume is gotten from this snapshot name. And we know that, okay, yes, this namespace from which this volume has been gotten from is youngest dev. So all we need to do now is wait for this to get initialized. And we can now, view and verify that indeed our data cloning has been successful. Okay. It's waiting. Should be done any moment from now. Okay, it's up and running. So now we have our endpoints here, and I'll click on this. And I want to test my to-do. And as you can see, we have same identical data using the interactive docs here, so you can have a more better view. And now I have the same data as I had in the, the original application here. So with this successfully done, I can continue to work with this data. And when okay, yes, the application, I can build new features and I can make changes, without being scared that, okay, this application is production, what is going to happen to it? Am I going to cause permanent damages? And this is how the cloning works. So I gave an earlier recap, and so I'm just going to go over what data cloning is all about. It is ideal. It is a very nice process. It's one of the latest features we have at Okteto. If you've not tried it, I want you to try it and give me feedback. Tell me your experience with it. Data cloning is amazing because it enables you build features with the live data without affecting production. Because Okteto is mainly for development processes, so you don't have to worry about using dummy data. You can use your application's data. All you need to do is create a snapshot and import it in whatever manifest you are using. And I think this brings me to the end of my demo. I hope you did enjoy it. And I would like Alan do you have any questions? Do you think this is
I'm
something you want to try?
impressed. I'm inspired. I really want to try this as soon as I get off our meeting here, because that is actually a pain point that we have is data. And that's the next kind of big, maybe too big of a rock for us. But how do we make that rapid data experience? I don't know if you guys love databases, SQL databases, but I imagine many of us have some stories to tell and about how kind of rough that experience is. So just seeing you, I think what you did, MongoDB, you had a database, you used the Okteto command to kind of clone the data someplace else and iterate on your app. Like, that is slick. That is real slick.
And the beautiful thing is it's not only for MongoDB, all databases work. So you could create for even your SQL databases, and we're excited. We want to see your feedback. How did it work for you? It's something I think it's an amazing feature if you think so. And of course, we want you to try it, and we're always welcome for feedback.
I'm going to steal this. Apologize, Ramiro, in advance, but you've inspired me yet again.
That's the best part. That's the way to work. Yeah, check it out and reach out to Abdul. I'm sure he has a lot of interesting tidbits to share as he builds his demos. I think, as you said, he's doing some Mongo. I think we have a demo on Postgres, maybe.
I'm not currently sure, but
the code is there. Yeah.
We have samples of repository. You could always browse through a repository and check for yourself. And this was used as a MongoDB. We use the Docker Compose manifest here. Or if we use, it also works for your Kubernetes manifest. Here's an example of a normal, Kubernetes manifest that we have, this volume here. And, you want to do the same thing that we did, because using Docker Compose is pretty easy. But if you are a native Kubernetes developer who loves, to write the YAML file and everything, how do you make changes? It's easy. All you need to do here is change and add volume claim name, templates. So like I said earlier, whatever namespace whatever manifest you're using, be it Octeto Stacks, Docker Compose, and even Kubernetes manifest, that clone process works. We have guides. There's an article. The link is already in the description. If you check it out, feedbacks are so interesting. And I think, yes, it's one thing I think every company should adopt, because working with data is really, really important. And I think it judges and helps in the direction of using your applications too.
Yeah, I think you said, Abdul, data is super important. It's a part of the dev experience that I think doesn't have as much visibility, right? And I want to get a shout out to our friends that the data on Kubernetes community, Barr and team, that they've been doing a lot of work in talking about data and Kubernetes and how this is important. And this could be a cool concept to maybe, Abdul, at some point we'll do a talk on data and talk about all the as we've used data on the environments.
Yeah.
There's all these cool patterns that you see emerge, like what you were saying, Alan, on like how do you bring data in this kind of like fast iterative way? Because if like we have one of kind of early adopters of Okteto, before they were just doing kind of like copying data from the database to their dev environments, but it was taking like an hour or two. So it's not something you can do every day. But if you turn that into a 1-2 minute process, then the idea of like, hey, just, destroy your dev environment, get another one with new data every day or every morning or every week, whatever, it's super feasible. And now you're able to, test and develop on a realistic environment, which for us at Okteto is kind of this core message we always tell everyone. Whether using Okteto or anything else, there's a bunch of really cool tools out there, but having realistic configurations, the same cluster, the same dev environment, the same data now, it just makes our lives easier. Like I have a lot of stories around back in my Microsoft days with like with SQL Server and dumping files and all these tools that they have to restore snapshots and data. It was useful because it's better than not having it, but it was kind of like janky. And what we built here, which is kind of like piggybacks on the snapshot and persistent volume APIs of Kubernetes. I like it a lot. It makes our lives easier, and some of our customers are starting to adopt this. It's a non-trivial thing. Like it's not something you just kind of like start doing on day zero, but as Abdul show you, as you have an environment, is what people should be looking at as kind of like the day one thing. So anyway, this is really cool, Abdul. This is amazing. Alan, I don't know if you have any questions Anything else you want to share?
I'm kind of blown away. It's exciting and powerful. Like to your points, like I think that's the dream, right? Like testing with production-like environment data. That's that next stage, and you're already kind of approaching that. So I'm just really impressed. Like, great job, Okteto team.
Thanks. Yeah, it's exciting. Now we have to get people to use it, get some feedback, and then testing is one of the things we're focusing on next. Is how to bring this together. Dev, test, preview.
At least so it's better to keep you suspense, and you might just find that's one of the community calls.
Yeah, it might come next time. So, well, with this, I think it's a great way to kind of like close on this. Alan, thanks so much once again. Abdul, another super cool demo as always. Everyone, we do this every month. So if you're seeing it live, if you're seeing it the recording, reach out, talk to us. We're always, more than happy to talk to all of you, share feedback. We do this because we like it. We're all a bunch of like engineers and DevTools people, and we love building this thing. So reach out. A few things before we close up. As we mentioned before, Abdul's been creating a lot of content, so check it out. We don't have a fancy banner to display, but do like and subscribe. Go on YouTube, find the Okteto channel. We'll share it on Slack and on Twitter, and check it out. If you have any suggestions on what would you like to see, if there are any other features you would like us to explore on this call on standalone video, let us know. And if you want to come join us, talk about Okteto or about your dev experience, I guess.
And reach out to me too, like alanmbarr.com. I write about internal developer platforms. So I'm an open book, reach out. You have questions. We're all going on this journey together. And, really thanks again to the Okteto community for your paving the way for this. This is really huge.
Oh, thanks, Alan. And we'll include that link on the video as well. We'll be posting an edited version of this talk on the blog for anybody else who wants to check it out. And well, thank you so much, Alan, Abdul. Once again, thank you for your time, for your effort, for helping us in this journey of building a better dev experience for everyone. And we'll see you all next month.
Right.